Okay, I would like everybody to take notice of something and take notice of when the call for reparations began to be made. As you know, the scripture says that when God was speaking to Abraham, he told Abraham, "Know of a surety that your descendants will be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they will be afflicted for 400 years." That was more, I'm paraphrasing, but we've, the African Americans, have been in America for 400 years. Now, the slave trade began before we arrived in America, but if the dates haven't been changed or nothing funny has been done to the calendar, then so I would like to say first of all that we don't need to be even thinking that we can get reparations from the people in this world, but they have already tried to absolve themselves of any guilt, just like the scripture said they would, that they hold themselves not guilty for what was done. And that's this woman who went on CNN did, and people are sort of, you've seen their comments, right? People are, I don't know why I'm just trying to get around naming the people who are doing this, but they're like, yeah, she showed him, yeah, that's what you got to do, go back to Africa, and that's the root of the problem. No, it was actually driven by the Europeans, but both sides should give us reparations. However, we don't need to be asking for reparations from them. The Most High will give us reparations. And so there's evidence for that. The Hidden Hebrews series, I can't pronounce the channel's name. I haven't really looked at it that hard, maybe, because I'm not even going to be able to pronounce that. So, but they have evidence that the slave trade was driven by the Europeans. But now they hold themselves not guilty for that. And it's going to be required of America as well for what was done to God's inheritance. You can read Isaiah 47 to read about that. And the point is, though, I want to ask who is behind, or what is the spirit behind the call for reparations? Because while the call might have been started by people who were not godly, who were not saved, who basically I wouldn't necessarily count as people we should follow. However, they can still be moved by God, and I think that's what's happening. Because it says in Deuteronomy 30 that it's going to be after our 400 years of being afflicted that when we begin to call these things to mind among the nations, among all the nations where the Lord has scattered us, and this is the wrong, I don't know why this website always gives me the wrong version of King James. It's supposed to be the old King James version. They keep giving me the new King James version, whatever. So anyway, where the Lord has scattered us, when we begin to call these things to mind, the curses that were put on us, then He will restore us. It says He will return, and He will gather us from the nations where we were led captive. So if you notice, these calls for reparations began to go out around the 2020, 2019, or at least they began to pick up steam. Before, they were largely ignored. But now it seems that people are starting to address it now. So these things are being called to mind, like the scripture says. When you see people asking for reparations, don't get mad. Recognize that scripture is being fulfilled before your eyes. 400 years of affliction, and now these curses are being called to mind. Just think about that.